The Meadowlands Museum, as you know it now, actually started out as the Rutherford Museum, and it began in February of 1962. Very interesting time period, especially here in New Jersey. They started out in the Sylvan school down that side of Rutherford, and after about a year or so, they were asked to leave the Sylvan school because they needed the space that the museum occupied for classrooms. And so they moved to Ames Street, to one of the buildings down there. And then they became known as the Rutherford Junior Museum. And then in 1974, they came here to the Yereance-Berry house and changed their name in 1967 to the Meadowlands Museum. Came here, became the Meadowlands Museum again, but they were really the Rutherford Meadowlands Museum. 1980, it was all official. We're the Meadowlands Museum, and that's what we're sticking with. Actually, this whole area was part of a land grant given by Lord John Berkeley and Sir John Carteret. And I just want to take a quick look, so I say the names correctly, to a Bartholomew Furt and an Elias Boudinot. And it was originally given to a Nathaniel Kingsland from a Captain William Sanford. And that Sanford name becomes important because there are a series of maps of this area, including this house, that are known as the Sanford maps, and the Meadowlands Museum is very proud to say that we have just acquired some of those. They are very interesting. Later on, the land that we know this area to be was subdivided. There was 15,000 acres that came in that land grant. So it's a lot of property. And it was subdivided and subdivided. And some of the early owners of the house include many Dutch settlers, and one of the first, whose name is Harpert Gerbrandstam. And it was eventually passed down to a William Juranasi, which is where they get the name Yereance from. And with the translation, especially of the Dutch names by the English, the names change. So we're kind of guessing this one was related to that one, and that's how the history of this building begins. It was a much bigger house than what you see right now. What you see right now is the main house. On the left side of the house, which would be Crane Avenue, was another whole wing, which was partially removed in the 1930s as Rutherford began to develop as an actual city and town. And in order to do that, they brought what is now Crane Avenue down this way, and that segment of the house, which I understand is about 7 rooms, were removed. Some of the inhabitants of this house, actually, as in all families, it goes from father to son, or it goes from brother to sister, as did happen. And parts of this house, especially where we're sitting now, this would have been like a parlor where you would receive guests, especially in the 19th and into the early 20th century. The room behind us, behind where your camera is, was at one time a dining room. And there's a fireplace in there like there's a fireplace here. I doubt they cooked in the fireplace, but you never know. But that's where you would be served when you came here as a guest of whoever was living here at the time. We do have clothing lots of clothing, especially from the 19th and 20th century. What we have of the 18th is not very, very much, and most of what we would have would be reproductions. A lot of those textiles do not survive temperature changes and being shifted around. We also have a wonderful collection of toys. We also have a collection of rocks and minerals, which is on the second floor of the building. And we have a room where we have phosphorus rocks. And when we get the youngsters in here, they're thinking, ew, history. Ew, this is boring. But once they see that upstairs, we're good. We also have on the second floor some exhibition space dedicated to the Jules Verne novel, Journey to the Center of the Earth. We also have a dinosaur fossil, so that when we get the kids in here, they love dinosaurs. I have no idea why. That's older than most of the history here, but they love that. And the Journey to the Center of the Earth. They like that too because it's cool, I guess. I don't know, but they like that. We have the Rocks and Minerals collection for people that are into geological study. And the geology of this part of New Jersey is very, very interesting. New Jersey is the Garden State, not because we got truck farms, that comes much later. New Jersey is the Garden State because of the land and soil. And parts of New Jersey soil is made up of something called marl, green marl sand, which is fertile. And on a very humid day, you know exactly what kind of earth we have. That enhances our reputation as being the Garden State. This area was mostly farmland, and this house was a typical Dutch farmhouse. The architecture with the gambrel roof, and which of course helps keep the snow from accumulating and roof collapsing, and also to a certain extent does keep some of the shade, not off the roof, but off the surrounding territory. Most of the furnishings that we have acquired really come from the 19th century, which would be the 1800s when John Berry, the Berry part of Yereance-Berry, built this house. And what we see here is a lot of furnishings. We have some photographs of the way the house was decorated over the years. This piece to my right here is a keyboard instrument, and it goes back to the 18th century. We keep it closed and we use it as a piece of furniture. I'm hoping someday we can get it restored, so maybe we could play it and the kids can hear an instrument from this period. The people who lived in this house, in some cases a big way, in some cases a small way, had a great impact on the history of the area. In the 1890s, the Noller family, who were Germans, interesting how we evolved from Dutch to Germans. The Dutch and the Germans don't like each other, so I guess that's meant to be. And the Noller family did have an impact here in Rutherford a little bit. And fortunately, the granddaughter of Charles Noller celebrated her 75th birthday with us. I had just started working here, and the family brought their mother and grandmother here because she's very much into genealogy, history, and that stuff. And we brought her in here, and it was like we gave this lady $1 million. She loved it. And we had pictures taken, and the Board of Trustees, the staff and volunteers presented her with a certificate commemorating her 75th birthday, but we didn't say it was her 75th birthday. Women don't like to admit our age. We don't like that. But we told her it was her 75th birthday jubilee. That she liked. She loved that. And her children brought little snacks. And they had a champagne toast. And I have to say, for 75, she's pretty spry. And what a lovely person. She was all excited about the house, and she remembered certain things about the house. She would know the house as a child once the wing on Crane Avenue was removed, because it was removed in the early 1930s. Because, as I said, the house passed from father to son, brother to sister, and so on. And it wasn't until the Mayer family in 1974 who sold the property to what is now the Meadowlands Museum, and that's how we became that. So it was great fun to be around this lady. And the nice thing, I had a little personal connection with her. She lives in Monmouth County like I do. So we're almost neighbors. She's a little too far away to go for a cup of sugar, but a very lovely lady. The people who come are usually people who find us by accident or who look us up in the Meadowlands area, and they think they're coming to a sports museum. And then when they get here, they find this charming old house, and they find sometimes that we're closing down and setting up a new exhibition, or we've just finished setting up a new exhibition. And the other kinds are people that are in the area that are looking for stuff to do on a weekend. That's where we'll see more people. In the summer months, we'll see families with kids, and they're stuck with the kids, and we need to get them out of the house, or we're gonna have a problem. And they'll come here and they'll say, hey, there's cool stuff. On the lower floor here, we have something called a pre-electric kitchen. And it's what it says. There's no electricity. And the one thing that the kids all love is the laundry. And I show them where you wash the clothes, and I show them we have a beautiful 1908 washing machine with an agitator that you turn by hand. There is also a refrigerator, but not what we know a refrigerator is today. It's an ice box. And I would tell them, and I do remember seeing it when I was a youngster, the iceman would come around, you buy your block of ice, you put it in the ice box, and it cools what's in there. But you'd have to keep replacing the ice because ice melts. And they just look at me in wide-eyed wonder. And I would say, underneath there's a basin, so when the ice melts, you can throw the water out, or you're ankle deep in water early in the morning. You don't want that, especially in the winter. And and while your clothes are washing, then you take them out of the washing machine, you put them in the laundry basket. That they're okay with. And they'll say, where's the dryer? We don't have electricity then. So you know what your dryer is? You see this clothesline? That's the dryer. And they look at you in wide-eyed wonder. I said, the rope and the sun above, that's the dryer. And they find that so cool. Go figure. We also have what you would find as a working kitchen, as you would find in a house like this. There was no ShopRite, there was no Pathmark, there was no A&P. So whatever you grew outside, you brought in the kitchen, you cleaned it, cooked it, and preserved it. So we have a beautiful coal-burning stove, goes back to 1870, and we have a cabinet where you would store your seasonings in that. And it's set up with the instruction book on how to preserve, how much salt, how much vinegar or whatever it is you're preserving. And then we have the jars, and that really is very hard work. But in the winter months when you can't get out, you do have to eat. So that's how you eat. That's how you do all that. So they like that. They love it when they come here and they see that. And they love the rocks that we have on the second floor because it's cool. I don't know what that means, but it's cool. We also have gallery space on the second floor, which coincides with whatever current exhibition we have going on. And it's kind of nice because it's like, we tell the kids it's like going on a treasure hunt. You go up the stairs and you find all that, and they think that's great. And it keeps their interest because there's nothing electronic about it. And once they get past the ew, and they start to hear and see what's around them, then they change their attitude. They think it's cool, which is good because this is what the next generation that comes after us is going to see. And hopefully, not just our carbon footprint, but our historic footprint is what people will remember. That's what we're about here. We tell the story of not just Rutherford, but the 14 communities which make up what we know as the Meadowlands. And it's so nice here. It really is so nice. It's a nice oasis in Bergen County. Ah, now Superstorm Sandy and her predecessor, her girlfriend, Hurricane Irene, were not at all kind to this beautiful old building. Irene started the problem, and then Sandy picked up from her and made things much worse. The roof on the building blew completely off. There was a great deal of water damage throughout the building, and thanks to the trustees of that time, they helped get the museum back on its feet. The museum was closed for over a year during the process of the restoration of the roof because you can't bring people in a place like this with no roof. Fortunately, we have not had any other problems such as water leakage. Water is very nasty, especially in an old building like this. It's very unforgiving. It leaves nasty calling cards, among which are water stains and mold. Mold is a nasty thing to clean up after, and it's very, very costly to clean up after that. Some of our collection did take a little bit of a hit because of the dampness and all of that. The interior of the building, of course, took a hit, and they officially reopened sometime in 2013, as I recall. The future of the Meadowlands Museum is to think digital. It is to think forward. We are coming in the 21st century upon landmark anniversaries at the current time. The landmark anniversary which comes to mind is the end of World War II. And it's the 70th anniversary. So do we want to remember that it was sad? No. We want to remember what we learned from that time and the politics and the culture. We are also commemorating some other historical landmarks, political landmarks. The trustees and myself want to see our community and our membership grow because our members and our volunteers really drive where this community and where this institution is going to go. We're a small institution, so every penny we get has to count for something. We want to see more of the schools come through here, not just for the science, but for the history and to write. And artists as well. Because one thing I like to see when I go to a museum is to see young artists sketching. Not for the copyright issue, but to sketch. Because when you take a photograph, it's frozen in time. But when you sketch, you can go back and fix it. You can't do that. Well, you can with a photograph, but not the same way. That's what I want to see, and that's what they want to see. We would like to partner with some of the corporations and other nonprofit and for-profit institutions because we have a story to tell. And if you keep the story a secret, no one will learn from you. And that's what we want to do. We want to teach, but we also want to learn from what's around us. That's important. Well, the Bectons and the Dickinsons really defined the Meadowlands area in the 20th century. Dickinson, well, that's pretty obvious. They went towards learning in university as we know it today. And Fairleigh Dickinson University, and also there was the Fairleigh family as well. The Dickinsons, and Fairleigh Dickinson particularly, is known for their science and business. They have other stuff too that they teach. And I'm happy to say, as alumna of the Seton Hall Museum program, and we also offer at Seton Hall, they also offer studies in nonprofit organization administration. So does Fairleigh Dickinson. That's wonderful because there's lots of those communities around here. Becton, on the other hand, had the vision to take care of people's healths. Now we've stopped roaming around and now we're a settled society. We want to live and enjoy every minute we can. Becton was a huge employer here in Rutherford, and I just learned that. And my origins here in New Jersey are from Hudson County, Jersey City in particular. The Colgate-Palmolive Company, which still has a big influence there, kind of led the way for companies like Becton Dickinson. Not just the founders of the company, Mr. Becton and Mr. Dickinson, but what they've done is leave an important industrial economic footprint here in New Jersey. We're much more than just farms, and we're much more than just those awful oil fields out in Elizabeth. We are the first to do many things, both in science, in business, and in history, that others would like to emulate. We're the ones that set the example. We take the heat because we're from Jersey, but without us, nobody else would think of what we do. That's what we're about here. The Rutherford Museum and the Meadowlands Museum grew out of a desire from the Rutherford PTA to have a place where kids can come and learn about their history and their background and the history of the area. The word history itself tells you. It's story. It's a story of who we are, what we do. But not just what we do, but looking forward. You can't look backward. The Roman god Janus says it so well. He has two heads. He looks behind him and he looks forward. And that's what the museum needs to do to stay alive and to be here for generations to come. There's nothing I enjoy more than when we see the youngsters come in here, especially the younger ones. They don't know what a telephone is. with the rotary dial. They don't know what a telephone booth is. They don't know what a typewriter is. They don't know. And when they see all that, they think it's so cool. Well, yeah, it is cool. Because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be where we are today. Always remember, every culture has a story. And pretty much a very similar root that every culture has. Every culture grows up around water and land. That's how they grow, and that's how they nourish themselves. And once a society stops moving around, they have time to tell their story. That's what it's all about.